Hi, this session is on simplifying expressions when dividing. But before we look at this, let's just recap on a few things we have learned already. Now, the previous lesson we have looked at the first index law, and with this index law, what it's saying is when we multiply variables and numbers, we add the powers of the same base. Okay, so with this kind of problem, it might look complicated, but it's pretty easy. Your first step is to multiply your numbers, your whole numbers. Here I've got a 2 and a 5. So 2 times 5 is 10. So always start with that. Take care of your numbers. Now, the next thing you can do, and this is a trick that I like to use, it helps me with my working out, and that is I can pretty much write the whole answer right now. All I got to do is first write down the bases, the different bases that I have, because the bases won't be changing. It's the powers that are changing. So let's write down all the different variables or letters that we see. So we've got an A, B, C, and an X. And all the different variables. And that's pretty much what our answer will look like. The next thing that will change is simply the powers. Add the powers of the same base. So starting with A, okay, we've got 3 A's here because it's 3. So are there any A's in the rest of this? Yes, there's 10 here, and we know there's an invisible one here. We add all these numbers, and that's it. So 3 plus 10 is 13. 13 plus that 1 is 14. So A to the power of 14, and that's done. Cross it off if it helps. Next, we've got B to the power of 3, so 3 B's here, 2 B's there, and 2 B's here. So 3 plus 2 is 5, 5 plus 2 is 7, and B's are done. This is how easy it is. And then we've got 10 C's here, no C's here, and 1 C there, that invisible one. So 10 plus 1 is 11, and that's done. And finally, the X, well, there's only one X here, no more X's to add it with, so we're done. And that would be your final answer. And that's not hard at all. We're just adding powers of the same base. Now, the next couple of questions involve multiplying, but also our division skills. And of course, we know we should simplify before we multiply. So have a go and write these questions down and try and do it yourself. And please make sure you are writing notes down. Okay, so with the first one, we can see we have fractions now and everything's being multiplied. So we can simplify anything from top and bottom. So the trick is, in this one, well, I've got an X up here and an X down there, a 10 up here, a 10 down there, and that's all I can see. When we cross off, we know we really just have a 1. It's not a 0, okay, because we're really dividing by the same number or the same factor, and we just get a 1. So what is left? We have on top 1 times 1 times 1, 1 times 1 times 2, which is 2, over 1 times y times 1, which is just y. There is nothing else that we can do, and that would be our final answer. And it's important that the 2's on top and the y's on the bottom. Now, our second question, don't be confused because the fractions aren't separated like the top one. There is still times, so there's still multiplication in between everything, okay? The fractions, see how here how they're all separated, okay? But here they're all sort of on the one line. That's fine. It's saying the same thing. So let's start with our 2. We've got 1, 2 up here and another one down there. I've still got a 2 here. I can't cross it off unless there's another 2 down here, and there isn't. So that 2 stays there. I've got a y here and a y there. It's gone, so they're all 1. I've got an x up here and an x down there. So what am I left with? On top, I've got 1 times 2 times 1 times 1, so it's just 2 on top. And on the bottom, what's 1 times 1 times 1? It's just 1. So the proper way to write this final answer, we know 2 over 1 or 2 divided by 1 is just 2. And that's what we're left with, okay? Now with our next question, we have the same thing as before, except the multiplication, which is invisible, is there. So don't forget that. I could have written this question like this: 5 times A over 10 times A. Same thing. Okay, or I could have written it like this: 5 over 10 times A over A. That is also the same thing. Okay, so now to simplify this, we simply start with our numbers. So 5 and 10, what's the factor of 5 and 10? The highest factor I can think of is 5. So 5 divided by 5 is 1. 10 divided by 5 is 2. So I'm left with, so far, 1 over 2. Now, with my A's, I've got one A on top and one on the bottom. So that's just actually gone. So my answer is just going to be a half, and that's it. Because 1 times 1 is 1, 2 times 1 is 2, and that's how easy it is. And if we had it in this form, we would get the exact same thing. The A's cross off, A's cross off, simplify 5 and 10, and you're left with a half. Now let's look at this question here. Now this is where it might start getting a bit complicated or look a bit different, and it's new to year 8. So if you have a look at this, we've got a to the power of 5, or how I like to say it is 5 A's on top and 3 A's on the bottom. Now we know this can be written in a different way, which may make more sense to you. And for example, before I write it, if you remember, if I have 2 to the power of 3, how do I write this? I can say, well, it's saying 2 times 2 times 2 3 times, which gives us 8. So these powers with the variables are doing the exact same thing. Instead of a 2 here, if I had a to the power of 3, this is saying a times a times a. We don't know what a is, but if it was 2, we know that the answer would be 8. But sometimes we don't know what the number is, but we can still work a few things out. So up here, I can write this this question like this. I can say, well, on top, I've got a to the power of 5, or 5 A's. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 being multiplied together. And on the bottom, I've got 3 A's. 1, 2, 3. Okay, and so these two things are the exact same thing. That's simplified, that's in expanded form. Okay, now we're doing this the long way for our first example, but there is a shortcut, and you don't have to write a times a times a. But for now, let's do it this way. So now let's cross off 1a at a time until we can't do it anymore. So 1a on top, 1 on the bottom. 1 on top, 1 on the bottom, 1 on top, and 1 on the bottom. And we know we're left with 1 everywhere because we're dividing by the same number or factor. Now, what am I left with? I'm left with up here 2 A's, or a times a. On the bottom, I just have 1 times 1 times 1, which is 1. That will be invisible. So up here, I have 1 times 1 times 1. And what's a times a? Okay, let's simplify it. Well, a times a, we add the powers. We're left with a to the power of 2, or a squared. So our final answer would be a squared. The 1 becomes invisible. Okay? So this is a longer way of doing this question, and I'll show you now the shorter way. But remember that this is all we're doing. We're taking out some factors, in this case, factors of a. Now, this is the way you need to learn how to do it, because sometimes you end up with questions with so many variables and powers. If you had to expand it all, it'll take forever, and you probably end up making a mistake anyway. So I'll show you an easy way. So instead of having a times a times a, let's do it this way. So we've got 5 A's on top and 3 A's on the bottom. Now, out of 5 and 3, which one is our smallest amount? Well, our smallest amount is obviously 3. 3 is less than 5. So what I'm going to do now is take away my smallest amount. Okay? It's gone, or it's really a 1. But what I do to the bottom, I must do to the top. So I've taken away 3 A's, so I must take away 3 A's from the top. So what is 5 take away 3? 5 take away 3 is 2. So on top, I am left with 2 A's, or a to the power of 2. Remember, it's our powers that are changing over 1. And that just equals a squared. And we've got the same thing as before. So remember, with index laws and algebra, it's the powers that are changing, not the bases. Okay? All right, let's try another one. So with this one, once again, don't get scared or confused. It's just as easy. Remember, there's times in between everything. It's just that it's invisible. Okay? So now, when doing this, work with one variable, so one base letter at a time. So we'll start with our A's. So always start with your smallest amount. I've got 7 A's on top and 2 on the bottom. My smallest amount is 2, and that automatically is gone, and it's a 1, okay? But what you do to the bottom, you must do to the top. So 7 take away 2. Oops, sorry, it just froze. So 7 take away 2 is 5. So I have now 5 A's on top. And because working out can get messy, what you can do is start writing your answers out. So on the bottom, I have a 1. On the top, I've got A to the power of 5. Next variable is a C. I've got 3 C's on top and 2 on the bottom. So my smallest amount is 2, so that will be gone, or it's a 1. And I took away 2 from the bottom, so 3 take away 2 is 1. So I'm left with C to the power of 1, or the 1 can be invisible. Okay, now I'm not going to write 1 here again because we are saying 1 times 1, which is 1. So write 1 once, and that's enough. Now, here we've got a T. So 1 T on top and 1 on the bottom. Because they're the same amount, we know we just cross it off, and the T's are gone. So we are left with A to the power of 5, and then times C, it's invisible, over 1. This 1 can become invisible, so our final answer would be A to the power of 5 and C to the power of 1. And the power 1 can be invisible. And that's it. Now, I've forgotten what number I was up to, so you just put your own number in. Okay, so with this one, you notice we have numbers now, okay, and there's also a negative. So we know that with our negative skills, if we're dividing, we know this line here, the vincular means division. So really on the bottom, I've got an invisible positive. A negative and a positive will make a negative. So straight away, my answer is going to be negative. And because this negative can sit in the middle, because it's saying the whole thing is negative, okay? So we've taken care of our negative, so we can cross it off. Next thing to do is deal with our numbers, okay? Instead of multiplying our numbers, we are dividing. So just like your fraction skills, what's the highest factor of 2 and 4? Well, I can divide 2 by 2, which is 1, and 4 divided by 2 is 2. So I'm left with 1 on top and 2 on the bottom, which gives me a half. Now, with my A's, I've got 2 A's on top and 10 on the bottom. My smallest amount is 2. That can go. It's really a 1. And then 10 take away 2. Well, 10 take away 2 is 8. So I'm left with on the bottom, it's important, it's on the bottom, A to the power of 8. And that's it. It looks a bit funny, so we can fix it up. Remember this one here, there's a times here. So we're saying 1 times 1. What students do sometimes by accident is they forget there's a times and they write the 1, which gives us 11. And that's wrong. We don't have 11, we have 1 times 1. Just be careful. So to make it look a bit better, we have 1 on top, and on the bottom, we've got 2, A to the power of 8, and don't forget that negative, the whole thing is negative. Now let's try possibly the hardest one you'll possibly get this year, or really ever. And the only reason why it's hard is because we've got heaps of variables. And it's so easy. So you ready? First, simplify our numbers. 7 and 14, can we divide them by the same factor? Well, yes, I know 7 divided by 7 is 1, and 14 divided by 7 is 2. Okay, so we have a half. Now, of course, please pause it and have a go yourself and see if you can get the answer. But if you're still not sure, then keep watching. Starting with our A's now, I've got 10 on top and 20 on the bottom. The smallest amount is gone. It's really a 1. And 20 take away 10 is 10. So on the bottom, I have A to the power of 10 left over. Next, I've got 3 B's on top and the invisible one, so 1 on the bottom. So my smallest amount is gone, but I have to take it away from the top. So 3 take away 1 is 2. So on top, I have B squared, or B to the power of 2. C, I've got 7 C's on top and 9 on the bottom. So my smallest amount can go. And then I'm left with, the whole thing's a 1, and I'm left with 9 take away 7 is just 2. So the power is a 2. So on the bottom, I have C squared. Next, up here, I've got 2 D's, and down here, I've got 5 D's. Smallest amount is gone, okay, and I've taken away 2D's, so 5 take away 2 is 3. So on the bottom, I have D cubed, or D to the power of 3. And now, almost there, I've got an E on top and a T on the bottom. Are there any E's on top I can cross off with the E? No. So that E just stays on top. And this T, are there any T's on top I can cross off with it? No. So that T is just stuck there. That hasn't changed. And guess what? That's it. Now this 1 here, remember there's a times here, 1 times b squared and so on. That can be invisible. Okay, so our final answer should look something like this. Leftovers are on top or bottom. They stay in their spots. And that's it. That's how easy it is. Now with this last one, it looks different to the others, and it actually is a bit more trickier. So if you do get stuck, it's okay, but it's not hard at all. Just follow the same steps we've been doing, and that is cross off or simplify whatever you can from top and bottom. So starting now with, I know the times is visible here, and it's visible because you notice we've got 3 J's here and 5 J's there, and they're both on top. That's why there's actually a times here to separate them. All right, so what we can do is simplify what we can from top and bottom. So I've got 2 K's up here and 2 there. It's just gone. Same amount, it's gone. I also see 5 J's here and 5 J's there. They're gone. And also a T up here and a T down there. Okay, everything we know is a whole number 1. And what is left? All that's left is J to the power of 3. So we have 1 times J to the power of 3 and 1. So we just have J cubed over 1 times 1 times 1 is 1. So our final answer would be J to the power of 3. So just keep in mind, the questions can sort of look different. You can have no multiplication visible. You can have it visible, but it's doing the same thing, okay? Simplify what you can on the top and the bottom. So now you really need to practice what you just learned, so you can finish your homework so you have no homework in class. There are a few questions I want you to do because, like I said, the more you practice, the better you become at it. And please make sure you check your answers as you go along, because there's really no point in doing it if you're making it a mistake the whole way through. So I want you to do questions from 5D, all of 1 to 7, and from 5J, all of questions 6 to 9. And the pages are there for you. Now this is from the new textbook. If you've got the older textbook, I'll let you know in class. Thank you.